The storage unit clerk asked if my fiancé's other household was moving too, and his mother laughed it off until the access log showed his ex had a key before I did. The first time I heard the words other household, I was standing beside my fiancé at a storage unit office, with a folder of wedding paperwork under my arm. We were 7 weeks from the wedding. That morning was supposed to be boring. Confirm the unit, check what furniture Daniel still had there, and decide what would move into our new apartment after the wedding. I had the moving checklist open on my phone, because lists were how I handled stress before I admitted it was panic. Daniel leaned against the counter, scrolling through his phone. His mother, Linda, stood beside him, already giving opinions about which of his old furniture was worth saving. I was used to Linda having opinions about everything, but storage furniture seemed harmless. The clerk, Marcy, checked Daniel's ID and typed for a moment. Then she paused at the screen. "So are both households moving out today?" she asked. "Or just this one?" I looked up. "Both households?" Marcy glanced at Daniel, then at me. She did not look dramatic. That made it worse. She looked like someone asking a normal account question. Daniel stopped scrolling. Linda laughed. "Oh, I'm sure she just means all his old junk. Daniel has always had too much stuff." Marcy looked confused. "I mean the other authorized household on the account. I need to know if we're removing access for both parties, or only updating the primary contact." The folder suddenly felt heavy. I looked at Daniel, waiting for the ordinary explanation. Old roommate. His mother. A mistake. Anything. Instead, he said, "It's fine. We don't need to get into all that." That was the first thing he said. Not, "What do you mean?" Not, "There's a mistake." Just, "We don't need to get into all that." I asked, "Who is the other authorized household?" Daniel lowered his voice. "Babe, it's nothing. It's old account stuff." Linda added, "Exactly. Everyone gets tense during moving." I looked back at Marcy. "Can you tell me what name is on the account?" Marcy hesitated. "I can confirm authorized users if the primary account holder approves." Daniel said too quickly, "We're not changing anything today." That was when the room changed for me. Daniel was not acting like a man looking at a boring clerical issue. He was acting like a man trying to keep a door closed. Marcy looked at the screen again. The secondary access is listed under Emily Carter. Emily, Daniel's ex. Not a roommate, not his mother. Emily, the woman he had called ancient history. I asked, "Why does Emily have access to your storage unit?" Daniel rubbed his face. "She doesn't." "Not really," Marcy said. "She's listed as an active authorized access user." Active authorized access user. 4 plain words from a stranger, and my engagement ring suddenly felt like it belonged to someone else's life. Linda gave a smaller laugh. "Well, that must be from ages ago. People forget these things." But she did not sound surprised. She sounded inconvenienced. Daniel turned to me with the soft voice he used when he wanted me calm, before I had even reacted. "Can we please not do this here?" The old version of me wanted to nod, walk outside, and protect everyone from the awkwardness. Instead, I heard myself ask, "Did she have a key before I did?" Nobody answered. Marcy looked down at the screen. Daniel looked at his phone. Linda looked at me like I had said something rude instead of obvious. And that was when I understood that, whatever this was, it was not going to be solved by me being polite. Before that morning, I would have called Daniel private, not secretive. He handled accounts alone, so I said he was independent. He kept old furniture in a storage unit I had never really seen, so I called him sentimental. Every explanation sounded reasonable by itself. We had signed the lease on the apartment we planned to move into after the wedding. Daniel never described the unit clearly. It was old stuff, some furniture, boxes from before. Nothing specific enough for me to picture, so I did not push. I handled most of the visible work, from vendors to the moving checklist. Daniel would say, "You're so much better at this than I am," and I took it as affection, instead of a way to keep me busy while he kept certain things invisible. The storage unit had come up before. The first time I asked whether I should be added to the account, Daniel kissed my forehead and said, "Don't worry about it. It's just dusty old things. I'll deal with it." I felt silly for asking. I was trying to be the easy fiancé. The second time was after we signed the lease. I asked if I needed the gate code in case the movers arrived before him. He said he would be there, so there was no need. When I said it might still be useful, he smiled and said, "Babe, do you really want one more account login to manage?" It sounded thoughtful, so I let it go. Linda reinforced it too. When Emily's name came up, Linda used a polished tone. Emily was old history. Someone from another chapter. It was not only that Emily's name was on the account. It was that I had spent months preparing to become Daniel's wife, while accepting that there were parts of his life I did not need to see yet. I kept telling myself marriage would make everything shared eventually. After the wedding. after the move. But at that counter, I realized someone else had already been inside that part of his life. And she had been there before me. Daniel followed me out of the office like I had caused the problem by asking the wrong question. The moment the door closed behind us, he said, "Can you not do that in front of people?" Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "I should have told you." His first concern was that someone had heard me ask. Linda came out behind him. "This is exactly why I said we should have let Daniel handle the storage unit himself. Moving already makes everyone emotional." "I'm not emotional because of moving," I said. "I'm asking why Emily is still an active authorized user." Daniel said, "She's not still anything. It's old access." "Then why did the clerk say active?" "Because systems don't get updated." I wanted that to sound reasonable. But Marcy had said active authorized access user. "If it was old," I asked, "why didn't you say that in there?" Daniel's jaw tightened. "Because you were putting me on the spot." Linda stepped in. "Sweetheart, every adult has old arrangements. Keys, accounts, storage, subscriptions. Not every old key means a scandal." I looked at her. I had not said key. Marcy had said access. Daniel had said account stuff. But Linda said key, like she already knew the shape of it. I asked Daniel, "Did Emily have a key?" "At some point, maybe. She helped me move things years ago." "Before I had one?" He looked away. "You never needed one." So I asked the only question that mattered. "Why did your ex have access before your fiancé did?" Daniel stared at me. "Because it was from before you." That explains why she was added. It does not explain why she was never removed. And it does not explain why I was never added. End. Quote. Neither of them answered. That was when I realized they were not trying to explain the access. They were trying to move me away from the place where the access existed. I sat in my car for almost 10 minutes. I did not cry right away. Instead, I watched Daniel and Linda near his car, talking quietly and glancing at me like they were waiting for me to become manageable. Then I opened my phone. I told myself I was checking the moving calendar. Then I searched my messages with Daniel. Storage, unit, key, Emily. The first message was from 5 months earlier, after we signed the apartment lease. I had texted, "Do you want me to call the movers and give them the storage address too?" Daniel replied, "No need. I'll deal with storage. It's basically empty anyway." Basically empty. At the time, I pictured a dusty couch, old books, maybe a lamp. I had not pictured an account with his ex, still attached as active access. The next message was from 3 months earlier. I had asked, "Should I get the gate code just in case?" Daniel answered, "You won't need it. I'm always going to be there when we go." I had read it as sweet. Now it sounded like a boundary, disguised as help. Then I found a photo I had taken during a packing weekend. Daniel's keys were on my kitchen counter. In the corner was a small plastic tag with the storage company logo. I remembered asking if that was the storage key. He picked it up quickly and said, "Yeah, but don't worry. That place is a maze. I'll handle it." I was asking normal questions because I was helping him move into the apartment we were supposed to share. Linda had helped build the fog too. I found old matter where she called Daniel's stored things old clutter and told me not to let old history make me insecure. Now I wondered why she felt the need to reassure me before I had even asked. Someone defending Daniel could explain each piece away. That was how I had explained it to myself for months. But the storage office changed the order of everything. Before Marcy said Emily's name, those moments were disconnected. Afterward, they lined up. Daniel had not forgotten to add me. He had repeatedly avoided adding me. Linda had not simply reassured me. She had softened the edges of something I had not yet understood. I opened my notes app and wrote dates. Lease signed. Asked about movers. He said storage was basically empty. Asked about gate code. He said I would not need it. Storage office. Clerk said other household. Emily listed as active, authorized access user. Linda said old key before anyone else said key. Daniel knocked on my passenger window. I lowered it halfway. "Can we go home?" he asked. "This is getting bigger than it needs to be." I looked past him and saw Linda watching. "What is in the unit, Daniel?" I asked. He blinked. "What? You told me it was basically empty." "It is mostly empty." "That is not what I asked." His expression changed. Calculation. "It has some boxes," he said. "Some furniture. Some things Emily never picked up." There it was. The first new piece of information he had not meant to give me. Then why does she still have active access? Because I didn't think about it. I looked down at my notes, then back at him. "I think you did." For the first time since Marcy said Emily's name, I stopped wondering if I was overreacting and started wondering what else I had been talked out of noticing. I told Daniel I needed one errand alone. Linda was watching, so he only said, "Fine, but don't make this worse." That sentence told me exactly where his mind was. Worse did not mean Emily having access. Worse meant me continuing to ask questions after I was supposed to accept his first explanation. I drove around the block and parked in a grocery store lot. I stared at my notes until they stopped looking like thoughts and started looking like a timeline. Emily active authorized access user. Storage, basically, empty. Daniel said I would not need gate code. Linda said old key. Daniel said Emily left some things there. I did not want to investigate my fiancé. I felt humiliated, like I had been invited to help build a home while standing outside one of its doors. But I knew that if I went home with only my feelings, Daniel and Linda would turn those feelings into the problem. Stress, insecurity, wedding nerves. I needed one clean fact they could not smooth over, so I called the storage office. Marcy answered, and I said my name, and explained I had been in earlier with Daniel. I told her I needed to understand whether I was authorized on the account. There was a pause. Then she said, "You are not currently listed as an authorized access user." I closed my eyes, hearing it plainly still hurt. I asked, "Was Emily Carter listed before today?" "Yes," Marcy said carefully. "She is listed as secondary authorized access." "Do you know when she was added?" Marcy gave me a month and year. "Old access." That was what he had said. But then Marcy continued, "The access was never removed. The key and gate permission are still active, unless the primary account holder changes them. Was there any recent activity?" "I can't give you a full access history unless the primary account holder requests it," she said. "But the secondary access was still valid as of the last account update." "The last account update," I repeated. "When was that?" She gave me a date. 3 months earlier. After our engagement party. After we signed the lease. After I asked for the gate code and Daniel told me I would not need it. The account had been updated while he was telling me storage was basically empty and not worth involving me in. This was not awkward. This was an account being updated while my future husband kept his ex's access alive and kept me out. Daniel called before I could decide what to do. "Did you call them?" he asked. I did not answer, and that was answer enough. He exhaled sharply. "Why would you do that?" "Because you wouldn't answer me." There was nothing to answer. "The account was updated 3 months ago," I said. Silence. Not confusion. Not surprise. Silence. "Instead," he said, "you're making this official when it didn't need to be." That was when the last soft part of me stopped trying to rescue him. "Daniel, your ex had valid access to your storage unit during our engagement, and I didn't. She wasn't using it like that." "Like what?" He did not answer. Then he said, "I can't believe you're doing this over a storage unit." "I'm not doing this over a storage unit," I said. "I'm doing this because every time I ask why she had access before I did, you answer a different question." For once, he had nothing ready. The access log had given me enough. Emily was not a forgotten name buried in an old account. Her access had survived updates, wedding planning, a signed lease, and every moment Daniel told me I did not need a key. If I only found that out because a clerk slipped, what else was I supposed to learn after I became his wife? Daniel came over that evening, with the expression of a man who had decided he was going to be patient with me. He stood in my doorway with keys and a bottle of wine, like this was stress or cold feet. I let him inside but kept my notes open. I needed the facts close enough that his voice could not move me. He set the wine down. "I hate that today happened like that. Like that. I should have explained better," he said. "You should have told me. I didn't think it mattered." That was the sentence he kept trying to live inside. It did not matter. It was old. It was paperwork. Every version made the question smaller. "If it didn't matter," I asked, "why didn't you add me when we signed the lease?" He looked at the floor. "Because I didn't think you needed to be involved in every logistical thing. But I did not need to be involved in the storage unit connected to that move? You're saying it like I intentionally excluded you." I said nothing. His patience cracked. "I didn't remove Emily because it would have been a whole thing." "A whole thing with who?" "With her. With the stuff. With everything. She still had some boxes there, and I didn't want drama. Emily was not a name the system forgot. She had access because removing her would require a conversation. Daniel had decided it was easier to keep that door open than to tell the woman he was marrying. "When was the last time she used it?" I asked. "I don't know. Approximately." He stared toward my kitchen. "A few months ago? Maybe? During our engagement. She was picking up things. You told me it was basically empty." "It basically is." "That is not an answer." He snapped. "What do you want me to say? That I handled it badly? Fine. I handled it badly. But it wasn't cheating. I had not used that word. That was what made it land. I had asked about access and timing. He had jumped to cheating. I asked why she had access before I did," I said. He gave a bitter little laugh. "Because she was part of my life before you. That's how time works." She was part of your life before me, I said. But I'm the person you asked to marry. I'm the person signing a lease with you. So why did she still have valid access and I didn't? After a long silence, he said, I didn't want you to make it weird. I almost smiled because it was so honest and so insulting. You didn't want me to make your ex having access to your storage unit weird? I didn't want you comparing yourself to her. I wasn't comparing myself to her. You made a hierarchy and asked me not to notice it. He leaned forward. Do you know how much money is tied up in this wedding? We are 7 weeks out, and you're acting like this one stupid thing means I don't love you. Then I looked at the unopened wine. He had brought a peace offering, but not the truth. I'm not asking if you love me, I said. I'm asking what kind of marriage you were bringing me into. Daniel lowered his voice. I'm sorry you found out like this. Not, I'm sorry I lied. Not, I'm sorry I kept this from you. I'm sorry you found out like this. I opened my eyes. The wedding is paused. It means I'm not making another vendor payment. I'm not moving another box. I'm not sitting in another planning conversation while you keep answering around the only question that matters. You can't just pause a wedding. I can pause my participation in it. So that's it? You're going to blow up our life because of a storage unit? For the first time all day, I did not flinch. No. I'm going to stop pretending this is about the storage unit. He left without the wine. Daniel had given me his last honest sentence by accident. He was sorry I found out like this. Linda did not stop calling that night. I let the calls go to voicemail. Then Linda started texting. First, gentle. Honey, I know today was uncomfortable. Please sleep on it before making any big decisions. Then practical. There are deposits involved. People have made plans. This affects more than just you and Daniel. You do not want to become the woman who ruins her own wedding over an old storage account. Linda was not asking what Daniel had hidden. She was asking what my reaction would cost everyone else. The next afternoon, Daniel texted that his mother wanted everyone to sit down like adults. I said I did not want a meeting. He said it was already turning into one because Linda had called my mother. That was how I found out my mother had been pulled in. She called it a misunderstanding with a storage unit. I gave her the factual version first. The storage clerk asked if Daniel's other household was moving too. Emily is still an active authorized user. The account was updated 3 months ago. I am not authorized. Emily had access before I did. My mother went quiet. Then she said, oh, that one word steadied me. She heard the order of the facts and understood why it mattered. The meeting happened anyway, at Linda and Robert's dining table, where we had once discussed centerpieces and hotel blocks. Linda opened with a sigh. We all love you. That is why we need to calm this down. Calm this down. Not understand it, not fix it, calm it. I sat across from Daniel with the dates open, because without facts, they would drag me back into feelings. Linda continued, Daniel made a mistake by not cleaning up an old account. But weddings are emotional. Moving is emotional. You are both under pressure. Axe, 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 axe. I looked at Daniel. Is that what you think happened? He looked exhausted. I think I handled it badly. That is not an answer. Robert shifted. What exactly are we talking about? Linda made it sound like an old girlfriend's name was left on paperwork. Emily was still an active authorized user on Daniel's storage unit. I was not. The account was updated 3 months ago, after we were engaged and signed our lease. Daniel told me I did not need access. The clerk referred to Emily as part of another household. Linda's face changed when I repeated other household. That was a poor choice of words by the clerk, she said. Maybe. But the access was not a poor choice of words. Daniel said, I told you she had some boxes there. You told me that after the clerk said her name. Before that, you told me the unit was basically empty. I asked, why did Emily have valid access before I did? The room went still, Daniel said, because she was added years ago. Why was she never removed? He looked at Linda for half a second. Linda jumped in. Because nobody thought about it. People forget old keys. You are acting like this was some active betrayal. I looked at her. You said old key yesterday before anyone else said key. Her mouth opened, then closed. I said, the clerk said access. Daniel said old account stuff. You said old key. Why did you say key? Linda flushed. Because that is what access means in a storage unit. Then why did you laugh? Daniel half stood. Enough. No, I said. Not enough. I have spent 2 days being told this is old, harmless, embarrassing, stressful, and not worth damaging the wedding over. But no one has answered the question. Robert looked at Daniel. Did Emily still have a key? Daniel did not answer right away. And the room changed. If the answer were simple, Daniel would have given it. Finally, Daniel said, she had access. I don't know if she still had the physical key. Even then, he was splitting the truth into pieces small enough to survive. But the access was valid. I said. Yes. And mine wasn't. He did not answer. I stood. Linda said, do not make a dramatic decision in my dining room. I realized she still thought the location was the problem. The office, the dining room, the timing, the guests. Never Daniel keeping me outside my own future. I'm not making a dramatic decision, I said. I'm making a practical one. Daniel's voice dropped. What does that mean? It means I am not continuing wedding planning. Linda's chair scraped back. You cannot just humiliate both families because Daniel forgot to remove an old access. I looked at Daniel. Did you forget? He stared at me. Daniel finally said, I didn't think it was worth the fight. That was the answer. Not forgetfulness. A choice. He had decided that removing Emily, telling me, or giving me equal access would create a fight. So he chose the path where I stayed uninformed. Then you decided the fight with her mattered more than honesty with me, I said. Daniel looked up sharply. That is not fair. No. It is just the first thing I've said that you can't turn into wedding stress. Linda said my name in a warning tone. I turned to her before she could continue. You laughed in the storage office, I said. You laughed while I stood there finding out that my fiancé's ex had access to something I did not. Then, you spent the rest of the day telling me not to embarrass the family. I am done being more careful with your reputation than you were with my future. But I knew the truth by then. I was not doing anything to the wedding. I was refusing to carry it the rest of the way by myself. I picked up my phone and purse. I am not marrying into a life where another woman had the key before I did. And everyone in this room thinks the real problem is that I found out. No one followed me to the door. I drove home, walked into my apartment, sat beside boxes labeled for our shared home, and stared until the words stopped looking real. Kitchen, bedroom, Daniel's books, wedding favors. Daniel texted that night. Please don't make any calls tonight. We can fix this. I said something badly. My mom is upset too. Please just sleep first. Then Linda texted. I am begging you not to punish everyone over one mistake. I put my phone face down. The old me would have answered both of them. That night, I finally understood that people who benefited from my silence were never going to certify my reason as good enough. The next morning, I emailed the wedding planner and said we needed to pause all upcoming payments and vendor confirmations. I just said there had been a serious relationship issue. After that, I called my mother. She did not ask me to decide faster. She just said, do you want me to come over? I said yes. When she arrived, I was sitting at my table with the vendor spreadsheet open and my ring still on. She looked at my hand, then my face, and did not say anything about it. My mother understood that taking off the ring was not a performance. It was grief I had to reach in my own time. We went through the practical pieces together. Venue, photographer, catering, hotel block, movers, lease, utilities. Daniel called 3 times. I did not answer. Then he texted, You're really doing this? Over storage? Over storage. That was the version he needed because it made me sound small. So I replied once, I am not canceling over storage. I am canceling because your ex had valid access to a part of our future before I did, and you kept trying to make the problem my reaction. He did not answer for almost an hour. When he finally did, he wrote, I didn't cheat on you. Maybe some people would have needed to prove that sentence false before walking away. By then, I knew the question was not only whether he had cheated, the question was whether I could marry someone who made room for his ex in places I was not allowed to enter, then treated my discovery like the betrayal. I took the ring off after Daniel's message. I did it quietly. I slid it off and set it beside my laptop, and for a second, I could not breathe. I had loved that ring. I had loved what I thought it meant. Linda came over that afternoon without asking. My mother was still there, which probably saved me from folding. Linda arrived with a tote full of wedding folders and said, We need to stop this before it becomes irreversible. My mother said, I think she's allowed to decide what is irreversible for her. Linda's face tightened. With respect, this affects both families. I stood before my mother could answer. No. The wedding affected both families. The marriage would have affected me. Linda looked at the ring on the table and went still. You took it off, she said. I remembered her laughing in the storage office and saying old key. I did, I said. She turned to my mother. This is exactly what I was afraid of. She is making decisions while emotional. Finding out your fiancé kept his ex on an active access account before the wedding is a good reason to be emotional. Linda's eyes flashed. It was an old storage unit. It was updated 3 months ago, I said. Even if Emily never touched a single box, I said. Even if Daniel never cheated, he still kept her access and kept me out. Then both of you pressured me to care more about the wedding than what that meant. Linda said my name sharply, but there was nothing left for her to soften. I am canceling, I said. Not postponing. Canceling. The next days were awful in ordinary ways. Calls, emails, lost deposits, and short explanations. Daniel sent one long message 2 days later. He said he loved me. He said he panicked. He said Emily's stuff had been complicated, and he had not wanted to upset me. He said his mother only wanted to keep things from spiraling. He said we could still go to counseling. He said throwing away a future over access permissions was tragic. I read it twice. Then I realized the message still did not answer the question. Why was he more willing to risk my trust than have a difficult conversation with his ex? So I did not respond. The last thing I did was go back to the storage office alone. I did not go into the unit. By then, the contents almost did not matter. I only needed to make sure my name was not attached to that account. Marcy was there again. She recognized me, and her face softened with awkward sympathy. I told her I needed to confirm that I was not listed on the account. She checked and said, "You are not." For the first time, that sentence felt like mercy. As I walked back to my car, I thought about the key. Who had it? Who did not? Who was expected to wait outside and be grateful for explanations later? I did not cancel a wedding over a storage unit. I canceled it because the storage unit showed me the door to a life I was never supposed to question. And if that makes me the person who ruined the wedding, then I guess I would rather ruin a wedding than enter a marriage where I was the last person allowed to know the truth. I did not feel brave when I did it. I felt embarrassed, tired, and strangely quiet. But quiet was different from unsure. For once, I was not waiting for Daniel or Linda to tell me whether my reaction was acceptable. That was the part I kept coming back to. A marriage should not begin with one person asking for access, and the other person deciding she does not need it yet. I also knew people would simplify it. They would say I canceled over a storage unit, over an old ex, over one administrative mistake. But I knew the real sentence was longer than that. I canceled because every simple question had been treated like a threat. The unit itself almost became symbolic before I wanted it to. It was just metal walls and a rolling door somewhere behind a gate, but it held the exact kind of truth Daniel had asked me not to need. Someone else could open it. I could not. I kept thinking about how easily I had accepted being excluded when the exclusion was packaged as convenience. He was not protecting me from stress. He was protecting the part of his life where my questions would have forced him to choose. That was enough for me. The anger came later. In that moment, what I felt most was grief for the woman I had been that morning, still carrying wedding papers into an office, still believing the next practical errand was part of building safe life. I finally saw it now. So, AITAH for canceling my wedding after a storage clerk revealed my fiancé's ex had a key before I did?